any campus community, I mean, obviously, the one thing that you see when you come on is the buildings, the way the campus looks, the way that it feels. So you have to pay attention to that. The first initiative that we need to take care of is student union and residence halls. I mean, those are the big things that both students have asked me to pay attention to, and they're the greatest needs on campus right now. Particularly the student union, I think that's the place where people look at as the living room to the institution. We don't do a particularly good job right now from a gateway standpoint. How do you get into the place? Where's the formal front door? We really don't have one. You can drive around the entire campus and there's no way to kind of get into the place. You park and then kind of wander on, and it's a beautiful campus, but we need to be really intentional about letting people know this is the front door, here's the welcome mat, here's how you get into the community. So those will be the first projects that we take on.
So are you kind of looking at the student union to be the front door of campus and like that where everyone kind of centralizes? And
yeah, that entire area, you know, the 9th Street project, eventually we'll close that street, and that will become the gateway to the college. So there'll be probably a learning commons. Steinhardt will be renovated, so it'll become a learning commons where there'll be the learning center and some other academic and student offices in there. Across the street you'll have the student union, and then eventually there'll be a welcome center. But that'll become kind of a feature gateway to the campus, and what it'll do is link the historic campus, which is where we are now, with this kind of emerging campus, which is on the, what would it be, the north side of campus, where that 9-hole golf course was. We've had a lot of additions there, you know, the communication center, you know, the athletic facilities, but we really haven't been intentional about how do we join the historic and the emerging campus. So that's what a lot of this project will attempt to do.
So, do you, some of the facilities kind of need renovated? How do you plan on renovating some of the buildings and still kind of expanding? Like how, for like one thing, like how will the money come in, and just kind of how will that?
Usually what you do is put together a comprehensive campus planning process, and then you put a campaign together to take care of some of those initiatives. So the first moves we talked about would be the student union and the residence halls. The second step is to take a look at buildings that need some care and attention. And you can walk into any of our buildings, frankly, and outside of the science building that was just built, they all need some updating. Many of them haven't been touched in 40 or 50 years. They all need some care and attention, and they all need some updating. So they become part of a larger capital campaign. I think we need to pay some attention to the fine and performing arts. Music is busting at the seams. Art, frankly, in my opinion, should be one of our most visually striking buildings. It's not. So we have some work to do there. But the reality is that the financial and strategic planning piece is very closely tied to any renovation that we would do. But I really want people to walk onto our campus, walk into any building and feel like not only have we preserved the historic traditional pieces, but we're also contemporary in the way that we've communicated who we are and what we want to accomplish.
Okay. So, let's see. With the student body, do we know exactly? Because we have a lot of freshmen, like trying to get a lot of more students into the campus. Where exactly will some of these dorms and residence halls be exactly?
Yeah, we don't know exactly where yet, but we know what we need. And we essentially need to renovate existing residence halls with the idea that we would expand them so that they have a seminar meeting space in each of the residence halls. Right now, we kind of have an approach towards our residence halls where we warehouse students. There's a room, but there's no gathering space. And what we really need is programming space, and not just for the reason that students can gather and interact with each other in a group setting, but also so we can push programming, academic programming, health services, counseling services, frankly, religious services into the residence halls. Blur this distinction between kind of the classroom and the residence hall. The second piece would be, we know that we probably need 2 traditional residence halls on the main campus and then 2 apartment-style residence halls down where Bronco Village is. The 2 residence halls that would go up here, probably longer term down the road, would be located somewhere near where the Pine Knoll development is right now. And we're actively engaged in a process right now of buying as many of those houses as we can as they come on the market, with the long-term plan that we'd use that space probably to do an expansion of the current physical fitness facility, and also build some residence halls.
Okay. Is there any other facilities in particular that you think the campus needs besides the a renovated like student union and welcome center and places like that?
I think the two areas that I would say we need to pay some attention to, the library. This is a very kind of old school library, stacks, and not a lot of technology built into it. It doesn't feel contemporary when you come into it. They've done as good a job with the facility as they can, but we need to pay some attention to what we know is emerging, and that information isn't about books and stacks, it's about access in terms of internet. So we need to create more of that social atmosphere with a higher tech edge to it. The second thing would be the music building is probably the greatest need. You know, right now we have students who are actually driving down to the Masonic Center in order to do rehearsal. They've done a great job establishing numbers in the program. We've got a rich tradition. We really need to both upgrade that facility and eventually create a performing arts center that can actually house the entire student body. We have no gathering space right now where we can do that other than the arena, and we need something a little higher class than that.
Yeah. Are you going to try to, like, also, you mentioned technology, are you going to try to, like, because a lot of the buildings on campus are kind of old school,
Mm-hmm.
and are you going to try to incorporate more technology like Wi-Fi better and like living or residence halls, excuse me?
Yeah.
Kind of do stuff with that, like technology and stuff?
Technology is one of those things where there's no real benefit right now to having technology as a differentiator. It's kind of an expectation. Students expect to be able to get Wi-Fi any place on campus. They expect their cell phones to work in the residence halls. And right now we have buildings where that's not true. And so the benchmark for us is that those have to be available in every building, in every space that you could potentially go to. The second phase of that is that I think that we need to manifest technology across campus in more deliberate ways. So big screen TVs, when we revise the student union, I want a grill area that actually is set up like a sports bar, where you can go in there, and it's as much about the experience itself, but it's also us communicating we get what people want in terms of technology. And you all do such a great job down in the media studies side of things that I'd love to be able to showcase that in a more direct way. So I've already talked to athletics a little bit about, let's put some jumbotrons in our arena and out on the football field. We're already broadcasting all of these things. They ask our students to do it when the NAIA championships are there. We need to provide a way to highlight that. So we're demonstrating some real excellence in those areas. We just need to take it up a level. And I think there's a way to manifest that in really intentional, strategic ways that we communicate that we get this and we do it really well.
Okay. Is there anything about the history of campus that you find really important to the future of Hastings College?
Yeah, I think that having McCormick Hall still functioning and active as a classroom, and the fact that many of our humanities classes are taught there is something that is foundationally grounding for both our academic program but also the campus itself. And so at some point we're going to have to pay some attention to McCormick and really do an upgrade that respects that kind of 130-year history. The layout of historic campus, I think we need to be really intentional about making sure that all of the activity doesn't get pulled away from here, but that there are reasons for students to come and recreate and socialize on this end of campus. So the tying together of the two, to me, is really important. The last thing I'll say is that much of the premium space on our campus right now that connects the two is a big parking lot between, the Science Building and French Memorial all the way down to our student union. And what we need to be able to do is push all of that parking out of the core of campus and create a beautiful pedestrian mall that goes right down through the center. That's a long-term strategy, but I think it's something we have to do. And I think that way it would connect the historic and the emerging campus, but also allow us to do much more programming in terms of activities and student, that third space, creating nice meeting spaces out there, and create more intimate spaces. So there's a lot of work to be done there, and that's probably a 20-year project that maybe after I'm gone, the next president could take on.
Is there kind of a short-term time frame of doing things and a long-term, what's in the short term and then what's in the long term? exactly?
Yeah, short term has to be contextualized within the fact that I'm a new president. I've only been here 10 months. I'm still learning the job, learning the community. But within the next 2 years, I think that we have to be engaged in the process of actually renovating the student union and making some renovations to residence halls. Those are the two, for me, first big moves. Within the next 3 years, we probably need to be engaged in the 9th Street project. And a lot of the timing on that is determined by when 12th Street, which is undergoing a renovation and expansion, which the city is doing, will be timed with that. And then the other piece is just walking around campus and seeing where we need to put in either additional attention, meeting space, gathering space. The real lack on this campus, and especially when you talk about it within a student success model, student-centeredness, there's no place to gather. Students are really being forced to kind of use the science building right now as a gathering space. And I think we need to be much more intentional about paying attention to areas where students can socialize. And part of that is providing food and beverage. Having a coffee cart in the science building is probably something that we need to take a look at.